Expand our imagination.
Justification for being what you are.
And welcome to Washington Unplugged. I'm Bob Schieffer. Well, President Obama's health care overhaul got a real setback yesterday when a federal judge in Virginia declared a key provision, a mandate that all Americans must have health insurance, is unconstitutional. This is a big win for Virginia Attorney General Ken Cuccinelli, who led the fight on this divisive issue. He's going to join us today from Richmond to talk about it. Then, as Republicans and Democrats are duking it out over tax cuts in Congress, a new group that calls itself No Label has just inaugurated itself and says it's time for politicians to drop their party labels and just work together. The co-founder of the group, Kiki McLean, is going to be with us to explain and tell us what that's all about. Then we're going to remember a man the president called a true giant of American foreign policy, Ambassador Richard Holbrooke, who died last night at the age of 69. But first, we want to go to Richmond and to Attorney General Cuccinelli. Well, Mr. Attorney General, a big one for you, and I have to say, when you filed this lawsuit, a lot of people thought it was frivolous, thought you didn't have a chance in the world to get this done, but you got it done. So you must be feeling pretty good about this.
Well, we did hear a lot of that criticism, and we do feel pretty good to get over the first hurdle. But honestly, if I can only win one, I want it to be the last one, not the first one. But we think it's important that the ice is broken with respect to the individual mandate. I think by the time the 25 or so cases all get through the first round in district court, you'll see a lot of other rulings like the one yesterday here in Virginia that agreed with Virginia's argument that that individual mandate ordering every American to buy health insurance isn't constitutional. Well, and if we want to reform health care, we've got to do it a different way.
Where does this go now? Does this go next to the Supreme Court?
The next ordinary step is the Fourth Circuit. The federal government will appeal the case to the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, and we're in discussions with them on an ongoing basis and have been for weeks about whether or not the case should be expedited to the Supreme Court, whether they would agree to that. Ultimately, the Supreme Court will decide that, but if the two parties are agreeable to it, it makes it a lot more likely. So because of the uncertainty that not knowing the outcome of this case introduces to our whole economy, not just the state governments like the one I represent, but also our entire private sector, we really feel strongly that to try and get one impediment out of the way of getting the economy going again, we should get this case done and as quickly as possible. The White House has expressed confidence that they're going to prevail. We speak a little more cautiously. We're cautiously optimistic that we'll prevail, but let's find out sooner rather than later, because the outcome is going to happen in the Supreme Court. We all know it. So the sooner the better for America.
Let me just ask you about one thing. A lot of the liberal blogs are talking about this today, and they're saying that regardless of the merits of the case, one side or the other, that this case may get thrown out because it turns out the judge in this case is a part owner of a political consulting firm, a firm that has worked for people like John Boehner and a lot of people who are against this health care proposal. Are you concerned that that might happen?
And let's recall where that was brought up. There are two rounds to every constitutional law case: the motion to dismiss, round one, and what we got the order on yesterday, which was the merits of the case, round two. Some liberal blog brought up what you're talking about, which was a couple of $1,000s worth of ownership, as I understand it, a few $1,000s of passive ownership by the judge of some company owned by people who lived down the street from him when he lived in Northern Virginia instead of Richmond. He has no idea who the clients are. He has no role in the conduct of that. And that was just a grenade thrown over the wall when the judge ruled that Virginia's case would not be dismissed and it would go forward. And then all of a sudden, this sort of allegation arises. This is irrelevant to the case. The judge doesn't even know who the clients of that firm are. And he's a passive investor like anybody else who owns stock in a privately held company. So that's not a factor in the case. It certainly isn't going to get the case thrown out. And the fact of the matter is, we're right on the merits. So that's our greatest strength. The truth is our ally in this. And so is the Constitution. And yesterday was a great day for the Constitution.
Well, now, there's another case sort of like yours down in Florida, as
Yes.
I understand it. Is this the same case? case, or are they arguing this on different points?
The Florida case involves the individual mandate, as does the Virginia case, but they also have another argument, and that is that the federal government is coercing the states because of the Medicare and Medicaid mandates that are included in the bill. So they have two things they're arguing where we were just targeting the individual mandate. All of the cases across the country, even the ones that don't involve states, all involve the individual mandate. And they all typically involve something in addition to that. In Florida, it's Medicare, Medicaid. But in Virginia, it was just purely the individual mandate. We have a statute here passed on a bipartisan basis last session by Democrats and Republicans in our General Assembly that protects Virginians from an individual mandate. So we had a conflict between the state and federal law. Of course, the federal law trumps unless it's unconstitutional. And so not only were we defending the Constitution, we were also defending that Virginia state law. That's why we did it in Virginia.
Explain to the layman, because I'm not sure, I am a layman, that's for sure, but I'm not sure I quite understand. Why is this unconstitutional? You argue this is unconstitutional under the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. Explain to us how that works.
The federal government, under the Constitution, has the power to regulate commerce, but that's commerce that we all voluntarily engage in. You may decide to set up a business, you may decide to go buy a product, but those are things you decide to go do and then take an action. And all of the Commerce Clause cases talk about actions taken voluntarily, activities, economic activity, or things you do that affect economic activity. What the federal government is asking the courts to uphold here is a decision by an individual not to buy health insurance, not to participate in commerce. Never before in our history has the federal government ordered Americans to buy a product under the guise of regulating commerce. Imagine, Bob, imagine if this bill were that in order to protect our communities and for Homeland Security, every American had to buy a gun. Can you imagine the reaction across the country to that? Well, the truth of the matter is the same legal power is at stake in ordering us to buy health insurance as they would to buy a car or to buy anything else.
That's a very interesting point, but let me ask you this. If you can force people to have Social Security, why can't you force them to have health care?
That's a great question. Social Security is supported by taxes. We all pay them, and there is no tax supporting this health insurance mandate. Had the Congress, instead of financing this entitlement by ordering us all to buy their mandated health insurance, because that's how the money flows to the health insurance companies to fulfill the mandates, if instead they had levied a tax on all of us, however much it would have been, and used the money to pay for this health insurance, that would have been constitutional. But they didn't want to vote on a tax. They wanted to do anything but vote on a tax, and this whole scheme can be looked at as a way to just get around having to vote on a tax. And unfortunately, they have done it in an unconstitutional manner. I mean, we need health care reform in this country, but what we need is more citizen control and less government control. And their scheme here, where they rely on ordering Americans to buy a product, is both unprecedented and beyond the power of Congress to do.
All right. Well, Mr. Attorney General, thank you very much.
My pleasure,
I
Bob.
must
Thank
say
you
it's
for
the
having
best explanation that I have had anybody make of this. At least I now know what the issues are in this.
Well, thank you.
Thank you
Glad to
so
help.
much. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure thing. Have a great day.
All right, we're going to turn now to party politics. Well, it seems like a simple concept, but one that hasn't latched on yet, and that is No Labels. Well, that's the name of a new group, No Labels, whose goal is to tame what they call hyper-partisan political climate in this country by dropping party labels. Kiki McLean is a longtime Democratic strategist. She's a veteran of the Clinton White House, and she's here with us to talk about this. So, Kiki, you had quite a kickoff for your group yesterday.
We did. 1,000 people from all over the country came into New York yesterday. People paid their own way, took their time off from their jobs and their families, and came together to have a conversation. There were Republicans and Democrats and independents, all people who may be proud of their party or looking for something more and different. This is going to be a national grassroots effort to push back against hyperpartisanship, like
Well,
you said.
is what you're saying we don't need political parties anymore?
No. This is not a third party. It's not an effort to run anybody for president. I'm a Democrat, and I'll always be a Democrat as far as I can see into the future. But I want to make my party stronger. When what we do is dig our heels in, and we won't even begin a conversation by looking for common ground, but looking for how we can make sure somebody else loses, we don't move forward. And as a Democrat, if we're not helping take care of people and doing what's needed for our country, my people are going to lose. My party's going to lose. What I want to see is a time and a place where people work together for the common good. So problem solving is first, labels are second. We want to make sure people can leave their labels at the door.
Michael Bloomberg was a part of this.
was.
A lot of people immediately thought, well, I guess this means he's going to run as a third-party candidate because he's a part of your group.
Well, no, then you'd have to say that everybody else who was there yesterday is going to run for president, because we also had some great people like Kirsten Gillibrand, Tom Davis, a former Republican member of Congress. We had some great leaders there, Mayor Cory Booker, Antonio Villaraigosa from LA, and I don't think any of them have presidential campaigns announced yet. But what we did have was a real conversation about how you solve problems and what we can do. Right now, culturally, we've set up the political process so that you get beat up if you reach across the aisle. People immediately from the extreme come and say, don't you dare sit at the table with that guy. Don't you dare go to the table with that woman. They're bad people. Well, how much can we solve if that's where we start? We want to flip this on its head and say, nope, we're going to actually demand that you be willing to work across the aisle.
So how do you do it? What
How do you do it? It starts at the very grassroots level. It means that I did something, and as a Texan, you'll appreciate this. Last week, Senator Coburn was on an interview, a very conservative Republican member of Congress from Oklahoma, went on the air in an interview on Morning Joe, and a particular reporter said, "No, what do you say about Senator or President Obama? Do you think he's a deficit hawk or one of those loose liberal spenders like they say in your party?" And Senator Coburn refused to take the bait. He looked up and he said, "The president's a friend of mine, and I think he loves this country. I'm not sure where he's going to come out on this." It's moments like that that we have to praise. It's moments where we can get up in the conversation. Right now, you have people from the extremes on both sides who dominate the conversation. Yep. They threaten, they cajole. There is a vast and broad middle in America where we're trying to help people gather up with like-minded people and make their voice heard.
Here is where I think your greatest challenge is.
Yeah.
In order to get elected to public office
Yep.
now, one has to raise so much money that one has to sign off with so many interest groups before you get to Washington.
But
that once you're here, your positions are set in stone, and that's why it is so hard for these people to compromise now.
But isn't it amazing? Wouldn't it be amazing?
So how do you change that?
Well, wouldn't it be amazing if we had 1 million people and no labels? And wouldn't it be great if all of a sudden you heard from no labels? Let me give you an example. Last year on climate change, forget what your position was, if you believe in it or not, what we should have done or not done about it. But when Lindsey Graham and Joe Lieberman and John Kerry sat down, boy, Lindsey Graham had people on him immediately. Don't even sit down with them. Boy, John Kerry had people on him. Don't sit down. What if they heard from 100,000 Americans and no labels saying, we're not dictating what the policy position is on this, but you stay at the table. You find an answer. You don't walk away from it. You stay put until you get something, and we'll be here to back you up. I want our elected officials to know, and it's not just Congress, by the way, and governors' mansions and state legislators and county commissioners. I want them to know that when they do the right thing, we will be there for them. And just like you said, in a lot of ways. Maybe in a primary, I'll contribute to the person I think who's going to make the effort as an individual. Maybe publicly, I'll go out and blog like I did for Senator Coburn. I mean, it's one thing for a Democrat to praise a Republican. It's another thing from somebody from Texas to say something about somebody from Oklahoma. And I did that last week because this has to change. It doesn't mean I don't love my party. It means I want my party to be stronger and better. You know, I'm always proud to brag that LBJ played the role he did in civil rights. But the reality is, he was a Democratic president who did not do this alone. There was a Republican leader named Everett Dirksen from Illinois who put a lot of his own capital on the line to make profound and moral change in our country. And that didn't come by digging his heels in and not being willing to go to the table on it.
That's exactly right. And Lyndon Johnson understood that.
He did.
And appreciated
He
that.
did. But he was there because America was there with him. And I think what Mark McKinnon and John Avlon and Bill Galston and some of the other folks who have helped put this together with Nancy Jacobson have discovered is that there are millions of Americans who want this. And I think that the number of folks who showed up at this time of year and this kind of economy to make their voice heard demonstrate that there's a real hunger for it.
Well, I'm going to tell you something. I really wish you well in this, because I think it's going to take something like this, because right now what we have is a Congress that's basically dysfunctional, that can't directly move on the most important issues. They just nibble around the edges. So if you're successful, this will be a very good thing for this country. Thank you very much, Kiki.
I'm glad to be here.
All righty. Finally today, CBS News Pentagon correspondent David Martin is going to share with us today some thoughts on the passing of Ambassador Richard Holbrooke. Here's his report.
Richard Holbrooke was a legendary multitasker, famous for both his effectiveness as a crockery-breaking diplomat and his ambition to become Secretary of State. When President Obama picked Hillary Clinton as his Secretary of State, Holbrooke signed on for arguably the second hardest job in the department, Special Representative for Pakistan and Afghanistan.
Struggle. And we require honesty and candor with the international public, the American public, and ourselves to proceed.
He was a key player in Afghan war policy, but was said to have rocky relations with the leaders of both Afghanistan and Pakistan. Rumors routinely circulated that he was about to quit or be fired, which may have just been wishful thinking on the part of his bureaucratic opponents.
Ask not.
He had served every Democratic president since John F. Kennedy, beginning with Vietnam, where he learned early lessons in the limits of American power, and rising to public attention as the negotiator who brokered a peace deal to end ethnic cleansing in the Balkans. His job as Special Representative for Pakistan and Afghanistan made him the civilian equivalent of a four-star general, although he commanded a much smaller army of agricultural workers and other aid specialists. At the age of 69, Holbrooke was said to have resigned himself to the fact that he was never going to be Secretary of State. The job as Special Representative for Pakistan and Afghanistan was to have been his last government assignment. David Martin, CBS News, Washington.
Richard Holbrooke. Well, that's it for Washington Unplugged. I hope you'll join us every day at 12:30 on CBSNews.com. I'm Bob Schieffer, and I hope you have a really good day.